Dr. R. Sugaraj Samuel. He is working as a professor in physics at New College, Chennai. He is also training students for IIT JEE, AIEEE and BIT SAT. He has more than 16 years experience in both teaching and research. He has published a book titled The Complete Handbook of Bachelor of Electronic Science Practicals, which is prescribed for the syllabus for BSc Electronic Science by University of Madras. He has presented papers in several national and international conferences and has also conducted many training programs and workshops to motivate energetic students. His research areas are ultrasonic, polymers, crystal growth and photovoltaic systems. He is experienced in both regular classroom teaching and online teaching as well.
Welcome to UGC lecture series in BSc Honours in Physics. We have been listening to a series of lectures on the subject electricity and magnetism. We have started the concepts related to the electrostatic field. In continuation to that topic, in today's lecture, we are going to learn about the flux, Gauss law and the related topics. Before we start today's lecture, let us see what do we have as outline for this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to learn about the electric flux, Gauss law, differential form of Gauss law, and as applications of Gauss law, we are going to learn how to find out the electric field due to a point charge, an infinite line charge, and finally an infinite sheet of charge. We know how electric field is established around a point charge, and with the knowledge of electric field around a point charge, how to find out the electric field due to distributed charges by way of integrating the expression. And we have some of the easy tools also to find out the electric field due to distributed charges, maybe over a surface or over a volume or over a point, whatever way it is. There are some easy mathematical tools. One such tool is the Gauss law. But before we learn about Gauss law, we should know some of the terminologies associated with Gauss law. The first terminology that we should know is the electric flux. So, we will see what is the definition for electric flux. The electric flux represented as the symbol phi is defined as the total number of electric lines of force crossing through a given area. So, there are two quantities determining the electric flux, the quantity electric flux. One is the electric field and the other one is the surface area. Not only these two, there is one more quantity, a third quantity also involved in deciding the electric flux. It could be visualized as the number of field lines that passes through the given area. Let us see the expression related to the electric flux. Let us see the expression. The electric flux through an area S, and the expression is given as phi is equal to E dot ds. Here the electric field is E and the area is represented as S. There are arrow marks shown on the top of the electric field E and the area S. Electric field is a vector because it has direction that we have been learning throughout. But what about the area? Area is spread over a surface. Is that area a vector quantity? That could also be taken as a vector quantity. If you want to find out what is the direction of that area, we need to take a tangent plane at a particular point on the surface area, and the perpendicular to the tangent plane is the direction of the area. So, area is treated as a vector here. For plane surface, we have one single direction as the area vector. If it is a curved surface, then at each point the area vector will have different direction. We have to construct a tangent and then take normal to the tangent. We will learn more on the way in which we take the direction of the area, but right now let us give importance to the expression and try to understand that. So, phi is E dot S, it is a dot product, and if you want to write it in the scalar form, we have to include the cos theta term. The cos theta here is the angle between the electric field E and the area vector S. See here, this flux has got the unit Newton per coulomb meter square. Newton per coulomb is the unit of the electric field E, and the meter square is the unit of S. So, put together we have this as the unit. The orientation is taken as the angle theta. The orientation is the angle between the electric field E and the area vector S. Can it have different values? Because theta could vary from 0 to any value. Maybe on a plane, if you take, it is from 0 to 180, or it can be any value. So, how it affects the value of phi, the flux? Let us see some of the visuals and try to get some idea. When an elemental area ds is considered on the surface, I hope you are able to see this picture, and there is a surface, a body is having the surface like this, and we have an elemental area which is marked here, and the electric field at that point is represented by this arrow mark, and the area is represented by this arrow mark as far as this elemental area is concerned, that is ds, and the angle between them is theta. So, when we have like that, we can take the summation like this, phi is equal to summation E dot ds. We have to take all the areas in terms of delta S. If it is a continuously varying one, we can replace the summation with the integral sign, and this is the final equation, and here the integral has got some importance. We have a circle marked here in the integral. I would like to highlight on that. We have an integral with a circle shown here. What is the meaning of the circle? It is taken over the whole area. It is a double integral. Instead of double integral, we put one integral sign and then encircle it. That is to be taken as a area. Not only the area, it is a closed area. We have to consider the area which is a closed one. It should enclose some volume, and such an area we should take. So, we have got this as the expression for flux. And having learnt that terminology flux, we can move ahead to know what is Gauss law. Let us see the statement for Gauss law, and this is also one such diagram where the angles could be different. That is what is shown here, and this diagram shows the angle is an obtuse angle at this point. The electric field is passing into the surface area like this. This is a body which has got surface. Just for the sake of discussion, it is divided into several elemental areas, small areas. For the area 3, this segment which is colored here, the angle is an obtuse angle because it has got the area vector in this direction and electric field is like this. For all the areas, the electric field is in the same direction. For the second one, it is at 90 degree, and for the first area, it is an acute angle. So, the angle could be of any value. Now, what is Gauss law? Let us see the statement for Gauss law. The law states that the total flux of the electric field E over any closed surface is equal to 1 divided by epsilon naught times the net charge enclosed by the surface. This law relates the flux to the total charge that is enclosed by the area that we consider, and it is the charge is divided by epsilon naught as far as the formula is concerned. It is because of the formulation we have the epsilon naught. The total charge enclosed by the surface is a very important quantity as far as this equation is concerned. Let us see the equation for Gauss law. This is the equation for Gauss law. We have stated what we have stated here in words is given in the mathematical form, and this vector notation is written as a scalar notation here. The Q net means the net charge enclosed by the surface, and the highlight of this Gauss law is how do we choose a Gaussian surface. The Gaussian surface is an imaginary surface that we need to construct so that this law could be used to the full extent. So, what is the Gaussian surface? Let us see what it is. It is the closed imaginary surface when we consider the area for solving problems. When we have this expression, it could be handled to solve very complicated problems, but before we use this formula, there are some key points that we should keep in mind. What is the concept of Gaussian surface, and how should we take the Gaussian surface around the charge distribution, and what about the angle between the electric field and the area vector, and how to find out the total charge enclosed by the Gaussian surface. All that knowledge we need to have before we use this Gauss law for solving problem. So, let us see what are the key points that we should take into account. These are the considerations, and here we quickly have a proof for Gauss law. There is a expression for the elemental flux. This is a basic definition for flux, and then we substitute the term for electric field which we know for a point charge. Here we have a point charge and the electric field is coming out in all direction. We just consider a Gaussian surface of random shape and all that, and we substitute for the electric field due to the point charge and then modify the equation accordingly. And when we do that, we come across the term ds cos theta divided by r square, and this is nothing but the solid angle. So, we need to integrate the solid angle for the whole spherical distribution, and we come across the term 4 pi for it, and this is the proof. We finally get the Q divided by epsilon naught as phi. This is what the Gauss law says. The flux is equal to the total charge divided by epsilon naught, that is done for a point charge. Now, what are the key points? As I stated before, the key points that we need to keep in mind. How to choose a Gaussian surface? While choosing a Gaussian surface, we need to keep the following points in mind to make the problem very simple. The E, the electric field, should be constant as far as possible at all points on the Gaussian surface. I will tell you why the E should be constant as far as possible. Sometimes it may not be, but as far as possible we should choose a Gaussian surface in such a way that the electric field is constant at all points on the surface, because Gaussian surface is an imaginary surface. If the electric field is constant, then we can take it outside the integral symbol. We can take it as a constant. The integral part will become very simple. The integration itself will become a simple step, so that we find out the solution for it. So, that is why as far as possible the electric field should be taken constant at all points. It is not that electric field should remain constant. The Gaussian surface has to be taken in such a way the electric field at all points on the surface is constant. Now, the next point, the area of the Gaussian surface must be a regular surface so that we know the expression for its area. When we integrate the area after taking the electric field as a constant, for that area the integral ds will be there. We should know what is the area expression for the Gaussian surface. If it is a regular one, we know the equation or the expression for the surface area. If it is an irregular one, we need to meticulously solve the integral for the area. So, we cannot randomly choose an area, irregular shape or anything. Better to choose a regular shape so that we use the Gauss law effectively for solving problems. Before I move on to the typical application of the Gauss law, one more form is there for Gauss law. It is called the differential form of Gauss law. Let us see what it is. Gauss law is written in this form. Just now we have learnt it. It is written in this form. The integral in the above equation is a surface integral or a double integral over x and y. Why x and y? Because it is an area. Along x and along y we have to integrate. That is the meaning of this integral. It is a double integral because it is ds, the area is there. In mathematics, we have a theorem called the divergence theorem. Sometimes this theorem itself is called Gauss divergence theorem, which states that the triple integral of this expression, it is del operator, this is a vector, the triple integral taken over a small volume is equal to the double integral of a vector and its product with the direction and ds. So, this is the conversion that we can have. A triple integral can be converted into a double integral using the divergence theorem. What is the integral we have in Gauss law? We have a double integral. So, if it could be converted into a triple integral over a particular volume, then we can get a equation called the differential form of Gauss law. Let us see further how the simplifications are performed. By making use of the divergence theorem for the Gauss law, we can write, as I said, the triple integral is used so that the double integral is removed in the Gauss law. This is the Gauss law. So, after suitable manipulation, the extreme two cases could be used, and when we complete the integrals on both the sides, we will be left with the volume here, triple integral of this volume. That volume could be brought here to the denominator here. What is the Q divided by volume? It is the charge density. It is the volume charge density that could be used. So, this is called the differential form of Gauss law. It is a very important expression. It is mentioned in our curriculum that we should know the differential form also. Sometimes this form is used for solving problems. And what is this symbol that we have here? Look at the expression, this symbol, an inverted triangle. This is called the del operator in mathematics. In vector calculus, this del operator is a quite often used operator. So, that also is mentioned here in the differential form of Gauss law. Now, I think it is time for us to move on to know some of the applications of Gauss law. So, let us take up the first case. It is the electric field due to a point charge. How do we use Gauss law for finding the electric field due to a point charge? We already know the expression for electric field due to a point charge. Using Gauss law, are we getting the same expression for electric field? So, let us make an attempt. Have a look at this. I would like to explain the diagram first and then move ahead with the expressions. Look at the diagram. This is the positive charge. due to this positive charge, we want to find out the electric field at this point. So, what do? We consider a small area here. This is a Gaussian surface. The first itself we should consider a Gaussian surface. A small elemental part of the Gaussian surface is highlighted here. So, the electric field will be coming out from the positive charge, and at that point the area vector is also along the electric field, it is also coming out. So, the Gaussian surface is a sphere of radius r. So, what is the distance between the point charge and this elemental area? It is again r. Hope you could look at the orientation of this picture. Now, having chosen a sphere around a point charge as the Gaussian, imaginary Gaussian surface, we can write the Gauss law and try to solve it. Look at the way in which it is solved. We have written the Gauss law in the vector form and finally in the scalar form. Here we have written the theta. Theta is the angle between the electric field and the area vector, which is 0 because they are parallel. So, cos 0 is 1. So, this loses its importance because it has become 1, and Q, this is the total charge enclosed by the Gaussian surface itself is a point charge. So, we have written Q divided by epsilon naught. E is a constant because it is symmetrically taken. The point is at the center of the Gaussian surface, so everywhere the electric field will be constant. So, it is taken outside the integral because it is a constant, and then we end up integrating the area. Because it is a sphere, we know what is the area of the sphere, it is 4 pi r square. So, when we manipulate, we get the expression for electric field due to a point charge. This is a very familiar expression. So, without doing much calculations, just by replacing the terms and properly writing the expression for area, by choosing the proper Gaussian surface, we are able to find out the expression for electric field due to a point charge. It is a valid one. So, Gauss law could be effectively used for finding the electric field. Now, we will move on to the next distribution, maybe a line of charge. If charges are arranged in the linear manner, we will do that. Electric field due to an infinite line of charge. Where do we come across this kind of line of charge? Suppose we have a non-conducting rod, non-conducting material on which if the charges are kept, due to these charges, how do we get the electric field around the rod? So, that is the meaning here. And at this juncture, I would like to mention how can we electrify a material. When we say positive charge, it is the absence of electron. When we want to make a material as a positive charged material, we need to remove electrons from it. In electrostatics, that is only possible. So, the dearth of electron is positive. We cannot add positive charge to anything. Though we say it colloquially, we have made it positive, we have actually removed the electron from the particular material. And in the same way, if we make some material as a negatively charged material, we are adding the excess electrons to it, because electron could be easily transferred from one material to another material by rubbing, by electrostatical induction. There are so many methods. So, this is how the electrified rod is made. Now, what is the electric field due to that kind of line charge, a rod? Let us see how the Gauss law is used. Construct a cylindrical Gaussian surface around the infinite line charge symmetrical around it. Let lambda be the charge per unit length of the infinite line charge. The electric field passes only through the cylindrical area and not through the circular areas of the Gaussian surface. Though the statement is made, this conveys the correct meaning only when we have a look at the diagram. So, here is the diagram for it. We have a line charge, and at this point we want to find out the electric field. So, the Gaussian surface is taken as a cylindrical Gaussian surface symmetric to the line charge, and at this point we concentrate and try to do the simplification. So, we have written the Gauss law as usual, and the electric field will be coming out from the rod. So, again the same manner how we have done in the earlier case, the angle between the electric field and the area vector is 0. So, we have written cos 0 which is 1, because all the points on this circular area are equidistant from the rod, electric field will be constant, it is taken outside the integral. So, we end up solving the integral of this small elemental area. And when we do that, what do we have? Here we have to be little careful. What is the charge enclosed by this? It is the linear charge density multiplied with the length of the Gaussian cylinder that we have considered. And we have to be little careful here. It should be a closed area. Gaussian surface should be a closed area or closed surface. Through this two circular areas, the upper one and here we have a lower one. Through these two circular areas, the electric flux will not pass. I would like to draw and explain. The electric field will be coming out from this, and for this circular area, if you take the area vector, it will be perpendicular, this angle is 90 degree. So, what is the flux that is coming out through the circular area? We will have the theta as 90 degree, cos 90 is 0. So, the contribution of the circular area is 0 as far as the flux is concerned. Now, what is the final expression here? So, when we simplify, we get the electric field E due to the line charge is lambda divided by 2 pi epsilon naught r. So, this is the final expression we have for the electric field due to a line charge arrangement. What else we have? This is the electric field due to an infinite sheet of charge. Have a look at this diagram. We have an infinite sheet which is charged positive. What sort of Gaussian surface we take for this? The Gaussian surface is a pill box. The flux passes only through the two circular areas and not through the cylindrical areas. This diagram is self-explanatory. The electric field will only coming out from the area and not through the cylindrical part. So, we have one such area considered on the other side of the sheet. Have a look at this. Suppose we have a sheet. This side one pill box, because electric field is coming out. This side another pill box, another part of the pill box, electric field is coming out through that also. So, a piercing pill box we have to consider on both the sides of the surface. Having done that, we have to just use the Gauss law. How the Gauss law is used? And one point we have to keep in mind, here it is a surface, so surface charge density is sigma, charge per unit area is sigma, and we start with the regular Gauss law. This E dot ds is for this one side circular area, this integral E dot ds is due to the other side, on the other side. So, cylindrical surface area does not have any contribution, which is equal to q by epsilon naught. Q is the charge enclosed by this circular part alone. How the simplifications are done further? When we take the electric field constant and integral ds is a, like that there are two expressions. So, 2 times Ea is q by epsilon naught. Bring this a to the denominator, we get the expression for electric field due to a sheet of charges E is equal to sigma divided by 2 epsilon naught. And if you look at the equation, the role of the distance is not there in this. Have a look at this once again. See, the distance expression is not there, r or d, whatever is, no, it is not there. So, what does that mean? E does not depend on the distance from the infinite sheet. If you have an infinite sheet of charge, it means the electric field coming out from the sheet is constant. It does not depend on the distance, it is constantly coming out on both the directions as far as an isolated charged sheet is concerned. With this, we can extend the concept for parallel sheets and so on, all that we reserve for the upcoming lectures. I hope now it is time for us to look at the summary of today's lecture. In this lecture, we have seen the concepts of electric flux, Gauss law, differential form of Gauss law, and the applications of Gauss law as the electric field due to a point charge, electric field due to an infinite line of charge, and electric field due to an infinite sheet of charge. Before we wind up this lecture, let us test our understanding by answering these simple questions. Define electric flux. State and prove Gauss law. Give Gauss law in differential form. Use Gauss law to find the electric field E due to a point charge, due to an infinite line of charge, due to an infinite sheet of charge. So, with this I would like to wind up this episode. Meet you in other episodes with the related concepts to Gauss law and its applications. Thank you for watching this lecture.